Welcome to Oxford News This Week. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Terry Stiles. In this week's news, will a small Lakeville church be allowed to remain open? And the Oxford Township has changes for Precinct 1 voters during the November election.
Stay tuned. Learn more about these stories and others. The Oxford News begins right now. Members of the Lakeville United Methodist Church say no to an order to either disband the church or join another parish. After receiving a letter from the superintendent of the United Methodist Church Council in Detroit to close or merge due to low membership and lack of financial stability, the congregation voted to deny the request to be closed. As one of the oldest churches in Addison Township, local parishioners would like to be granted time to see if a merger is possible with other churches who may be experiencing similar issues involved. The Detroit Conference consists of over 400 churches in Michigan with over 700 clergy and more than 90,000 laypersons. Lakeville Church members are hoping to convince those in authority to support the little Lakeville Church and its congregation. OCTV will follow this story.
There's a new Eagle in town. Eagle Scout 15-year-old Oxford sophomore Adam Birch, son of Tom and Linda. Birch was honored for his accomplishments to obtain the distinguished Eagle Scout status at a ceremony held at the Oxford United Methodist Church on Sunday by friends, relatives, and scouts from his Oxford Troop 366. Adam was awarded a statuette by World War II veteran Edward Solone, who is the chaplain of the Oxford American Legion Post 108. It took Adam Birch over 9 years to achieve the highest declaration of Eagle Scout. Not an easy task, and we congratulate you.
Oxford Township Clerk Curtis Wright wants those voting in Precinct 1 to know that your voting location in November at the general election will be moved from the Oxford Village Community Room to the United Methodist Church building at 21 East Burdick Street. Precinct 1 is the largest voting district in the village. It has 2,500 registered voters. According to Michigan Bureau of Elections, whenever possible, a polling place has to be located in a publicly owned or controlled facility such as a school, fire station, or police station. So, if you are a Precinct 1 voter in the November 8th general election, you will vote at the East Burdick Street United Methodist Church in Oxford.
The second annual Putt for Paws charity golf outing held at Devil's Ridge Golf Club was a huge success. The event, sponsored by Dr. Elena Osborne, owner of the Veterinary Home Care, estimated over $12,000 in cash will be split between Oxford Canine Rescue League and the Canine Companions Rescue Center. As an added bonus to her cause, a number of dogs were adopted to their forever homes at the event.
Beware morning prowlers. Last week, a village resident heard someone attempting to break into her back door at 5 o'clock in the morning. The resident told police that when she went to investigate, she recognized the man and woman who was attempting to break in and gave the police the names of the suspects. Police have been unable to reach the two suspects, but the case remains open.
For those of you who have AT&T cable television, AT&T is discontinuing cable services and switching customers to DirecTV by increasing their cable bills up to $100 per month. DirecTV does not provide public access television such as OCTV right here. If you prefer a cable provider who will provide public access, you'll need to switch to Charter in our area. If you're unhappy with these options, email your state representative, Brad Jacobson. That's it for Oxford TV for this week. If you want to learn more about these stories and others, stop by your local store and pick up a copy of the Oxford Leader newspaper, or better yet, catch us right here at OCTV Charter Channel 191 and for a while AT&T Channel 99.
Coming up next on OCTV, Oxford Sports with Jamie Hughes, and also catch Oxford School News with John Ochins. And don't miss Auto Talk and Science in the News with Dave Kenny.
I'm Terry Stiles, and this is Oxford News This Week, where we bring your news closer to home.
And I'm Elgin Nichols. Remember, always be kind to your friends and neighbors, and thanks for watching.
Welcome to Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny, and these stories are taken from the publication New Scientist. In our first story, Rosetta's final order is in. Go caving. After 2 years orbiting 67P Churyumov-Gerasimenko, the European Space Agency craft will crash into a cave on the comet's surface on September 30th. The target is a once active pit named Deir el Medina, after a village where pottery shards that provided detailed records of life in ancient Egypt were discovered in a similar looking well. The cave sits in an area of deep pits, some of which occasionally erupt with spectacular dust jets. From orbit, Rosetta has spotted blocky structures called goosebumps on the pit walls that seem to be the fused remnants of lumps that formed the comet. These pieces probably originated in the solar system's earliest days, so could provide vital information about its dawn. The spacecraft will free fall from 20 kilometers to reach this pit, snapping close-ups and recording data about the surface before sharing the fate of its companion, the Philae lander, which crashed in 2014. Back on Earth, the newest model of Jeff Bezos' rocket line now has a name, the New Glenn. Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket is meant to be reusable. After taking off and reaching space, it can return to Earth and land vertically on its boosters. It builds off the New Shepard rocket and capsule, which launched and landed for the first time in November of 2015. The rocket, named for John Glenn, the first American to orbit the Earth, is meant to take astronauts into orbit and beyond. It will come in a 2-stage and 3-stage variant, both of which have recoverable boosters. The New Glenn is designed to launch commercial satellites and to fly humans into space, wrote Jeff Bezos in a statement. The 3-stage variant, with its high specific impulse hydrogen upper stage, is capable of flying demanding beyond low Earth orbit missions. The rocket will be 22.9 feet in diameter and range between 269 and 312 feet tall. That makes it physically larger than any current rockets and nearly as big as the Saturn V rocket that took humans to the moon. To lift all that, the New Glenn will have 3.8 million pounds of thrust from 7 engines, about half the lifting power of the Saturn V. That makes it competitive, but not the biggest among the planned heavy lift rockets. NASA's Space Launch System will have 8.3 million pounds of thrust, and SpaceX's Falcon Heavy will have 4.9 million. None of these heavy lifters have flown yet, however. Bezos says he plans to launch the New Glenn rocket by the end of the decade and hinted at an even bigger rocket to come called New Armstrong. Our vision is millions of people living and working in space, and New Glenn is a very important step. It won't be the last, of course, Bezos wrote. Up next on our drawing board, New Armstrong, but that's a story for the future. Reusable rockets should reduce the cost of spaceflight, and both Blue Origin and SpaceX have successfully demonstrated that their rockets can re-land. SpaceX is still investigating an explosion during a test flight before a Falcon 9 launch on September 1st, and it's not yet known how it will affect its launch schedule or its plans for the Falcon Heavy. Back on Earth, in the forensics field, never before has splitting hairs been so useful. Analyzing the proteins in hair could provide a way to identify people when DNA sequencing fails. DNA molecules break down quickly when exposed to water, light, and heat, so sometimes analysis of DNA found at a crime scene won't work. Glendon Parker at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California and his team say hair can help in some circumstances. Hair are made of proteins that are pieced together according to instructions in the genetic material of our DNA. When mutations occur in genes, it can lead to slight changes in the sequence of amino acid molecules that make up hair proteins. To use such changes to identify people, the team broke down a hair's proteins and separated out the chunks to analyze their sequences. Comparing these results to a database of hair proteins can identify places where unexpected amino acids have been inserted. Using this approach, the team was able to identify dozens of sequence changes in the hair of 76 living people and hair from people who died around 1750 to 1850. They say some of the changes they found may occur in only 1 in 12,500 people, making them powerful markers for linking someone to the hairs left at the scene of a crime. The technique could be invaluable. Protein is more abundant and more robust than DNA, says Andrew Wilson at the University of Bradford in the UK. Well, that's it for this edition of Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny. Stay tuned to Oxford Community Television, and we'll be right back.
Welcome to the Oxford Wildcats School Update. The first September school board meeting was last week, and school test results were the topic of discussion. Assistant Superintendent of Instruction Ken Weaver gave the presentation mostly favorable. We took a few minutes with Ken to talk about this.
Well, our M-STEP scores came back. That's the test for 3 through 8th grade, ELA and math, and then in certain subjects or certain grade levels, science and social studies. It also tests 11th grade science and social studies. We also have the PSAT results back for 9th graders and 10th graders, and then we also have the SAT results back, which is the 11th grade college ready test that the state uses now. They had switched from the ACT. In general, in our 3 through 8 scores in ELA and math, our scores are up if you look at them compared from 2015 to 2016. So that was a good indicator, as well as the fact that in general we're definitely above the state average or the state mean, but we're also above, for the most part, the county average as well.
Reading is one of the areas that could stand some improvement. Ken tells us more.
We do have some work to do in some areas. In 3 through 8, mostly in the area of ELA. We've got in the early grades, 3rd and 4th grade, while 5th, 6th, and 7th were basically above the county average. In the 3rd and 4th grades right now we're below the county average, so that would be an area that we're really concentrating on. And matter of fact, this year we're putting in a new reading program. We've adopted the Lucy Calkins approach to teaching reading. If you may recall, we've already put in the Lucy Calkins approach to teaching writing, and so now we're putting in the reading, so hopefully that'll help, as well as the teachers. We've added extra interventionalists over the last 6 months, so we're starting to really try to concentrate on getting working on that reading piece with the kids.
We stopped by the auto lab to check in with teacher Dan Balsley. He has a new assistant.
My former assistant retired last year, and so we brought in Zach Ludy. He's a former student. He's gone all 4 years with me in the auto tech program. When he graduated, we went out into industry, and he worked in industry for a while. When he found out that the position was available, he came back and applied for the position. So I'm real excited to have him in as my new assistant here in the program.
And he knows all about mini-mites, right? He's ready to tell the guys the ropes.
I hope so. Have you tell you a little bit about his background.
Okay, go right ahead.
Like you said, I'm Zach. I went to school here, graduated here, went all 4 years with Mr. B, went into industry for a couple years, worked at some Ford dealerships. I seen Mr. Sears retiring, and Mr. B's getting his 30 years of service here at the high school. So I kind of want to let the program live on because it helped me and a lot of others out. So I decided to come back, see what I can do, revamp it up a little bit.
All right, you got some pretty big shoes to fill.
Oh, the biggest shoes here at the high school.
Teacher Krista Price is in charge of our theater department. She brings us up to date over there.
We are doing 2 fall plays this fall, one for the women and one for the men. So that's something a little bit different.
Now that sounds a little sexist to me.
Well, there is one woman in the man show, but just providing the opportunity to have exclusively guys working together and really training the men in preparation for the musical. We had a down year last year with guys, and so we're working to build up the skills and abilities of the guys in our department. We have some fabulous guys already in the department, and we're looking to grow.
What are the names of those?
So the men's show is Of Mice and Men, and the women's show is Steel Magnolias.
Improvisation is one of the opportunities over there, too.
We've had teams for, I think, the last 3 years that have been performing. We perform on Thursday nights, usually twice a month. We had a little bit of a down year last year, so we're really working to revive the team this year and get it going strong.
All right, so do we have any people who are candidates for Saturday Night Live? What do you think?
We have in the past few years, especially after that May term course. So many people, that were terrified of it before, learned that they're actually really good at this. And
Peter Pan is the musical this year, Something About Flying. The November election is quickly approaching, and we want to remind you about an important millage vote coming up. Assistant Superintendent of Business and Finance, Sam Barna, explains.
Well, there's going to be two proposals. One is going to be the true millage renewal, which is 17.8078 mills for non-homestead properties. That is currently the tax levy for non-homestead properties for Oxford Community Schools. And then there is going to be the restoration, which is the .1922 mills. And that .1922 is merely the difference between the 18 mills that the state is assuming we're levying versus what we really are levying, which is the 17.8078. So that renewal, again, is the 17.8078, and the restoration is the smaller .1922.
Please remember, this is an important vote for our school district. It only affects property that is not an owner-occupied home. A yes vote on these two issues means we can continue to fund our schools to provide the same great programs that we have now. That's the Oxford School Update for this week. This is Oxford Community Television, keeping it local.
Back with you in Oxford News this week, and yes, sports, and a lot of sports coming your way. In what looked as a promising start for the Oxford Wildcats, beating number 1 Romeo, the Bulldogs, in a 27-26 nail-biter, have actually led Oxford back to the practice field. A loss against Clarkston have left the Wildcats 1-2 on the season and 0-2 in the OAA Red. Clarkston used its run game to score 4 touchdowns. The Wolves' rushing attack was led by Michael Flugel, who carried the ball 12 times for 114 yards and 1 touchdown carry. Oxford avoided the shutout with a late 10-yard touchdown pass from Garrett Tyrell to Ryan Miller. Trent Meyer finished with 48 yards on 7 touches for the Oxford Wildcats. Oxford travels to Lake Orion. We'll have the results next week's broadcast. An incredible close matchup with Oxford and Berkeley. We're talking about swimming here. The two OAA Blue Division teams, they went back and forth throughout the course of the meet. Berkeley had too much depth for Oxford, and Oxford lost. The two teams will see each other again at the Oakland County meet, the Blue Division. Oxford claimed the top spot in 12 events at the swim meet against Ferndale. The two teams will see each other again in the Blue League matchup. Oxford is 1-1 in their swim contest, OAA Blue Division, and will take on Stony Creek next week at the Natatorium. Again, we had that one on OCTV. Check it out. Rod Charles making the call. And our tennis inaugural season, Oxford varsity had its first match against the hard-fought match number 2 singles Trevor Wallace, number 3 singles Connor Romey, and number 2 doubles team Jonathan Robb and Dane Von Allman. There you go. Oxford fell to Avondale. A score there 8-0. Oxford's next tennis match will be against Ferndale, and we'll have the results on next week's broadcast. The Oxford boys varsity tennis team again fought Ferndale, I should say. A 5-3. Oxford recorded some great performances with Connor Romey at number 3 in singles, Brock Hellig, number 4 singles, and from number 4 doubles team, Corey Schimmel and Avery Lavender. Oxford's next match again Thursday is against Southfield. Again, we'll have that one on next week's broadcast again for tennis. Oxford drops non-league matchups with Lapeer 2-0 in soccer. Both goals were scored in the second half. Oxford 4-3 overall, 1-1 in the OAA. White, the Wildcats traveled to Avondale on Tuesday for a key league contest. Oxford dropped their match at Avondale 4-0. On the road, senior captain and keeper Eddie Diaz Vela made 8 saves. Oxford drops to 1-2 in league play. OAA White and 4-4 overall. The Wildcats traveled then to Stony Creek for an OAA crossover on Thursday, playing only their second home game for the season. Hosting Bloomfield Hills, Oxford came back from the 2 goals down to tie the game on a pair of goals from junior Mitch Morowski. The first half saw senior and captain keeper Eddie Diaz Vela made some key saves to keep the game close. The half ended, I'd say it that way if I was announcing it too. 0-0. The first 10 minutes of the second half saw Bloomfield score goals. The Wildcats would go down, not go down without a fight, and were determined to level the game. With 10 minutes left in the game, Wildcat Nick and Mitch Morawski and Captain Nick Wright continued to mount pressure on Bloomfield's defense. Mitch Morawski found the back of the net with continued pressure. Morawski got the end through the ball and left side and tied the game at 2-2 for the second goal of the night. Oxford was relentless and almost had the game winner, but time expired, and leaves Oxford 1-1 in OAA White, and they remain 4-5-1 overall. That matchup was also seen here on OCTV. Again, you'll want to catch all the sports on the weekends here at Oxford Community Television. Jumping out to the Lynx in the tough field of 25 schools, we're talking golf. Oxford varsity continued to leave their captain, Kenzie Chasen, with an impressive 80. The Wildcats shot 373. Lauren Yankee carded at 87. Freshman Cass Chasen broke 100 and shot 99. Freshman Cameron Royster shot at 107. And her first ever high school competition. We're lucky to have such a great squad of 8 JV and 8 freshmen. The team will compete at Davison Country Club. That'll be on Monday. We'll have the results. Again, they carded 14 out of 25 at 343. Good job on the golf, and I tell you, golf's awesome. Check out the website. That's the Oxford High School website. You can find out all the information, all the sports. It's right there at your fingertips. You can find where your athlete's supposed to be, and you can find out if they won, lost, or had a draw. It's oxfordathletics.org. It's all one word. It's the official website of Oxford Athletics. Hey, while you're on the web, check our website out. Go to OCCTV.org. Hit the programs tab, YouTube, or wherever you like to watch. You can catch it on your iPad, computer, phone, or you can just catch it conventionally on television on the weekends. Our sports on Saturdays and Sundays between 1 and 6. Again, if you don't catch it there, go to our World Wide Web at OCCTV.org. That's it. I'm Jamie Hughes. We will see you next week with sports on Oxford Community Television. Have a great week, everybody.
Welcome to this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny, and these stories are taken from the publication Automotive News. In our first story, Mercedes-AMG is adding 2 open-air variants to its high-performance GT lineup. The Mercedes-AMG GT Roadster and GTC Roadster will be powered by 4-liter V8 engines with twin turbochargers, direct injection, and 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. The GTC Roadster, with 550 horsepower and 502 pounds-feet of torque, is the most powerful of the two. Its horsepower rating is only 27 horsepower behind that of the Mercedes-AMG GT-R that was unveiled in June. The GT Roadster will pack 469 horsepower and 465 pounds-feet of torque. The Roadsters feature a long sweeping hood, a wide stance, and an aluminum body shell. The GTC Roadster, like the GT-R, features wider rear fenders and active rear axle steering. The GTC Roadster also has a race transmission mode, which adjusts the shift strategy of the dual-clutch transmission to fit the needs of a racetrack. If a driver presses the separate M button on the center console, the manual transmission mode is activated. The GT Roadster has Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus, and individual transmission modes. The fabric roofs on both models open and close in about 11 seconds and can be operated at speeds up to 31 miles per hour, Mercedes says. With the 2 Roadsters, the Mercedes-AMG GT lineup will consist of 5 models in addition to the GT-R, and there is also the 112,125 GT and the 132,025 GTS. The GT Roadster and GTC Roadster are to arrive in U.S. dealerships by fall of 2017, and pricing will be announced later, but you'd better save those pennies. And at Chevrolet, the Chevrolet Bolt can go from the U.S. Capitol to the Empire State Building on 1 battery charge. General Motors says the EPA-certified range of the Bolt, which is scheduled to arrive at some dealerships by the end of this year, is 238 miles. That would make it the first electric vehicle to be sold in the U.S. with a range of more than 200 miles and a starting price of less than $40,000. It beats the 215-mile range that Tesla has promised for the similarly priced Model 3, which is not expected until 2018. It also tops some versions of Tesla's more costly S model, which is now on sale. GM said the 238 miles will meet the average consumer's daily driving needs with plenty of range to spare. GM hasn't given the exact price for the Bolt other than to say it will start at less than $37,500. Most drivers would qualify for a federal tax credit of up to $7,500 plus any state credits available to them, taking the price to about $30,000. It is also unclear where the first Bolts will be offered for sale. GM's statement says it will arrive at select Chevrolet dealerships in late 2016. Chevrolet's website says the Bolt's 60 kilowatt battery will take about 9 hours to fully charge with a 240 volt charger. The Tesla Model S60, which has the same size battery as the Bolt but costs around $71,000, is certified as having a range of only 208 miles. And at Ford Motor Company, in an effort to expand its mobility services, Ford Motor Company has acquired the San Francisco-based shuttle service Chariot and partnered with bike share company Motivate, the company said on September 9th. The deal was made under the recently formed Ford Smart Mobility program led by former Steelcase CEO Jim Hackett. Ford is not discussing the price of the acquisition, a company spokesman said. And Chariot, founded in 2014, provides shuttle transportation in the Bay Area using routes based on customer demand. The company's stated mission is to provide affordable mass transit, and it competes with services such as Uber Pool and Lyft Line, which have been operating in the San Francisco area since 2014 and have expanded to more than 15 cities in the U.S. Chariot currently operates around 100 Ford Transit vans on 28 routes, according to Ford, and is expected to expand to 5 new markets in the next 18 months. Under its partnership with Motivate, which operates the City Bike service in New York City, Ford plans to increase the number of bike share bikes in the San Francisco area to 7,000 from 700 by the end of 2018. Bikes will be available through the Ford Pass smartphone app, which launched in January as a resource to help drivers find parking and check transportation options for specific routes. Ford CEO Mark Fields has talked about the company's efforts to move beyond vehicle sales to providing additional mobility services as more Americans migrate to urban areas. In August, Fields said the automaker will be operating self-driving car service by 2021. Wow. Well, that's all for this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny, and as always, may the wind be at your back as you cruise down life's highways. Stay tuned to Oxford Community Television, and we'll be right back.
Oxford Orient Fish helps provide emergency aid to the people of Oxford, Lake Orion, Addison, and Oakland Townships. One of the only self-served food banks in the state, Oxford Orient Fish provides once-a-month food supplies based on the size of the family. To donate, volunteer, or to find out more, call Oxford Orient Fish at 248-628-3933 or go to their website, oxfordorientfish.org. Oxford Orient Fish, neighbors helping neighbors.